Hello, guys. My name is Mario, and today I'm going to be discussing a book by Sherry Fink. It's called 5 Days of Memorial Herman. It was originally published in 2013, um, and it recounts the experience and the witness of a doctor during Katrina and mm, her experience was during that time. And it really helps us immerse and understand um, why certain decisions were made under those situations. Um, I do believe that the doctor did a good job of describing her feelings of being trapped in the hospital and helping us immerse into that environment. Um, and I do believe that the lack of food, air, conditioning, sleep had an effect on the decisions that they made. I'm going to read two excerpts from the book. One of them is floodwaters unleashed by Hurricane Katrina had marooned hundreds of people at the hospital, where they had now spent 4 days. Doctors and nurses milled in the foul-smelling second-floor lobby. Since the storm, they had barely slept, surviving on catnaps, bottled water, and rumors. Before them lay a dozen or so mostly elderly patients on soiled, sweat-soaked stretchers. Um, I have never been through that experience. I've never been a nurse during a disaster. Um, and I can not even imagine what it must be like. Um, there have been times whenever we have been severely understaffed in my unit. However, that is nothing compared to what it must be like to actually, go through lack of supplies, lack of cleanliness, um, lack of medications, um, and how the standards are severely lowered. Before, where we want patients to leave with a good experience from the hospital, where they can obviously be empowered from their experience and not come back. um, Frankly, we just want people to live in emergency situations, which is something that is we want the most people to live, which is something that is some can be twisted to think about, especially whenever it comes to, for example, let's think you have a certain family member who you believe would not be a high priority. Then that if it affects you. Um, Another excerpt is the hurricane cut off city power. Um, the hospital backup generators did not support air conditioning and temperature climbed. The well insulated hospital turned dank and humid. Theo noticed water dripping down its walls. The doctors were requested to leave last. When Theo asked why, his friend brought an index finger to the crook of his opposite elbow and fanned him, giving an injection. Theo caught his drift. One thing that I want us to think about was how during those emergency situations, like whenever we go back to nursing school, we think about triaging. Triaging truly is about giving the best health experience and the best um, allocation of resources to patients, from what I understand. Um, and in situations where you're severely limited in what you have to do the best with what you got. Um, there was another excerpt as well where it says that priority tags were taped to the gowns or cots. The tags indicated the doctors had decided that these sickest individuals in the hospitals were to be evacuated last. Um, what that means is you try to prioritize saving as many lives. Um, and that means that there are certain patients which might not be worth the trouble um, for the sake of other people's lives. Um, One of the videos from Sherry Fink, she says how at first the doctors were trying to evacuate their sickest patients last, so obviously they could receive better health care elsewhere. But then I have to understand that as more people started dying and resources were being cut off, maybe these patients became too much of a hassle for them to um, transport. She says about one patient that was around 400 pounds, and how are you going to transport them without all the fancy equipment and maybe not even the use of elevators. There's some things that are impossible to do without technology, and electricity in hospitals. A lot of what we do relies on electricity. You know, we're not back in the old days of where things were ran differently. Um, this also kind of gives a different perspective on possible euthanasia that might have been given, and helping understand how these doctors believe that at the time they were doing the best that they could. It does disturb me a little bit, but frankly, I believe that none of us can understand that decision unless we are put in those in that situation. Um, so I believe that it is something that, whenever it was scrutinized, was definitely put into perspective of, you know, they were trying to make the best decision that they could with what they had. And these are my thoughts on 5 days at Memorial. Thank you.